In this lesson, we're going to look at the area of a circle. Our learning target today is that we will be able to find the area of a circle and a semicircle. Here's just a couple of tips for remote learning. So we are at the point in the year where the content that we are working on, we are able to use a calculator. You can use the calculator on your phone or a regular scientific calculator or one on a computer. If you are just looking at the slides, I would recommend putting these into presentation mode so that you are looking at the animations and the step-by-step guide on how to solve the problems. And of course, you are watching this video so you know how to get to all the YouTube videos, but I do want to mention that there is a YouTube video for every lesson, so please check in Google Classroom and or check with your math teacher. Here are the parts to a circle. Just as a reminder, we're mostly just going to be working with the radius and the diameter and the relationship between the two of those. So the diameter is the full length across the circle, where the radius is just half that distance. You need to know the formula for the area of a circle. The formula is A equals pi r squared. The area equals pi times our radius squared. And when we're working with pi, we can either use the decimal or fraction approximation. And depending on if you have a multiple of 7 or not, you are going to use the fraction or decimal approximation. So if you have a multiple of 7, go ahead and use that fraction equivalent for pi 22 over 7 because it will give you a more precise answer. And if it's not, then just go ahead and use 3.14. Our first example for the area of a circle, we are given a circle with the radius of 7 centimeters. I would always recommend writing down that formula first. It helps you make sure that you are plugging in the numbers into the correct spots, and it also helps you memorize and know the formula. Because our radius is 7, it is a multiple of 7, we will be using the fraction approximation for pi. So our area is approximately 22 over 7 times 7 squared. I'm going to decompose the 7 squared because I can make that equivalent form of 1. That's going to simplify my answer before I multiply to go bigger. Now all we need to do is multiply 22 times 7, and the area of our circle is 154 centimeters squared. Example 1b, our circle here has a diameter of 26 inches, so we need to get the radius, so cut that in half, which is 13 inches. We're going to write down our formula and plug in our numbers. So our area is approximately 3.14 times 13 squared. 13 squared means 13 times 13, and you can use a calculator to figure that out. So do 13 times 13 in your calculator, then multiply that by 3.14, and our area of our circle is approximately 503 and 66 inches squared. Here are 2 problems for you to try on your own. Please read them carefully. You might be given a radius or a diameter, and you are being told whether you are using the decimal approximation or the fraction approximation for pi. You should be writing every step down. You don't have any side work because your calculator is helping you with the multiplication, but every step, just like I have in the slides, should be written down on your paper in your notebook. So go ahead and practice this. Come back and I will walk you through the solutions. On your own number 1, we are given a radius of 6 feet. We're going to write down our formula, plug in our numbers. We're using the decimal approximation because 6 is not a multiple of 7. 6 times 6 is 36, and then multiply that by 3.14. The area of a circle is 113 and 400 feet squared. On your own number 2, we were given the diameter of 28 meters. 28 is a multiple of 7, so we will be using the fraction approximation for pi. So our area equals 22 over 7 times 14 squared. I'm going to decompose and look for that equivalent form of 1. And now we're going to multiply 22 times 2 times 14. And I can use my calculator to help me do this, but sometimes there's some steps, there's some things that you can do in your head mentally that you can do prior to actually hitting those buttons in the calculator. So I know that 2 times 14 is 28, so in my calculator, I'm multiplying 28 times 22 to get 616 meters squared. All right, example number 2. Now we're moving on to semicircles. So a semicircle, there's not going to be a new formula. You just need to understand the relationship between a full circle and a half of a circle. So we're still going to be using area equals pi r squared, but now we just need half. So we're multiplying pi r squared times 1/2. Our diagram shows a stage with an orchestra pit, and the orchestra pit is in the shape of a semicircle, half of a circle, with a diameter of 30 feet. That tells us that our radius would then be 15 feet. So our area of a semicircle is going to be 1/2 times pi times our radius squared, or 1/2 times 3.14 times 15. Okay, that's what I need you to have written down on your paper. Now you're pulling out your calculator. What I would suggest you do is you type in 15 squared first. So 15 times 15 times 3.14 and then times 1/2. Now to do the times 1/2, you can either say times 0.5 because that's the decimal equivalent, or you can divide by 2. However you want to do that. That's your choice. You should get 353 and 25 square feet. Now, I would recommend that you're pulling out the calculator and doing while you're watching me do the video, type that into the calculator and see if you can get that same answer. See if you can use your calculator and pushing the buttons in the right way to make sure that you're getting the correct answers. We want to make sure you're getting that part correct. And that might seem silly, but it's something that we need to practice. So here are 3 on your own problems for finding the area of a semicircle. Notice that you have 2 of them diameter, 1 that's a radius. Please pause the video, do your work on a piece of paper. You can use a calculator to help you do the multiplication, and then come back and watch the video to check to see if you are correct. Here we go, on your own number 4. So our area of our semicircle is 1/2 times pi r squared. So our radius is 4. And so 1/2 times 3.14 times 4 squared. 4 squared is 16. Half of 16 is 8. So I might not actually have to put all of that into the calculator. But you should get 25 and 12 square feet. All right, the next one, on your own number 5, we have a diameter of 5 yards. So our radius is 2 5/10 yards. We're going to plug that information into our formula, 1/2 times 3 14/100 times 2 5/10 squared, 2.5 times 2.5, and then multiply that by 3.14, and then multiply that by 0.5, 9.8125 yards squared. And the last, on your own, we are given the radius this time, so we don't have to cut anything in half. We're going to plug that straight into our formula using the decimal approximation for pi. 11 squared is 121, so now we're going to multiply 0.5 times 3.14 times 121. We get 189 and 97 square centimeters. And that concludes our lesson on finding the area of circles and the area of semicircles. If you have questions, please contact your math teacher. You should be able to go into essential assignment number 3 to work on your geometry project, slide number 12.